officially at the top of the hour, so I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Good morning, everyone. My name is Zach Bushbach. I'm the Senior Director of Analytics and Data Science here at Academic Analytics. It's my pleasure to welcome you all to our Coffee Break webinar series. Today's session's topic is leveraging the AAU Phase 1 membership indicators. I'm going to provide a little bit of brief background here about the genesis of this report and then turn it over to our two panelists for today. We have Ann Shaw, who is our team lead for the analytics and data science team. And then we have Sean Clark, who is a senior data analyst here at Academic Analytics. I think we're probably looking good on population here, so I'm actually going to dive into our intro here. By way of background, Academic Analytics has been the source of awards and books data for the AAU Phase 1 membership indicators for a number of years. And over the past probably 5 years or so, every fall when Academic Analytics releases the annual Academic Analytics database, something that we always received requests from a number of clients for was to receive awards and books data that mirrored the data that we provide to the AAU so that institutions could track where their institution lays on those metrics relative to their peers so that they can understand how they're performing on the membership indicators, either because they're interested in aspiring to AAU membership or because they're a current AAU member and they're trying to make sure that they're monitoring how they're performing on those metrics over time to ensure that they're maintaining their status as an AAU member. Last year, we decided that we wanted to embark on a project to provide a more comprehensive AAU analysis for clients rather than providing these as one-off ad hoc analyses in response to client requests. We know that the AAU membership metrics are something that a lot of institutions took effort to track on their own internally. And since Academic Analytics is the source of 2 of those indicators, we thought we were well poised to try to pull together some of the other data that exists in those membership indicators to put it all in one comprehensive dashboard, or actually a series of dashboards. And so I'm going to turn things over to Ange and Sean here, and they're going to walk you all through a little bit more of how we went about this analysis and how to utilize it on your campus. All right, Ange and Sean, the floor is yours. Thank you all for joining this morning.
Thanks, Zach. Good morning, folks. My name is Ann Shaw. I'm the team lead on the analyst team. I had some enjoyable experience of not actually developing this report, but watching it as it was being developed, and was really happy to see how it developed with the different indicators coming from different sources in our data all together in one report. Sean?
Hey there. So as Zach mentioned, my name is Sean Clark. I use she, her pronouns. And yeah, we're excited to show you today the report that we have developed that hopefully you are able to use and will mean a lot. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay, so we have anonymized the report for the purposes of this webinar, but when you log in, it'll have your institution's information. Ange, do you want to start us off?
Sure. The first few tabs here are similar to our other reports where we have an overview and navigation, and we have a methodology tab for this particular report because, so this, you might want to print it out, has all the information that answers most every question that may come up when you view this report. We're not going to go through this in great detail today, but we wanted to let you know that it's right here at the beginning of the report to help you understand things as you go through it. But the top part is important to mention now. For the Phase 1 indicators, we use rolling 10-year averages. And so that's for each database year going back to 2014. So you can see there that for all of the metrics, there are the time windows there for each of the metrics.
And I will say of note is the HERD expenditures. Because of the way that the HERD data comes out from the government, we actually have that 1 year in arrears. So when we talk about the AAD 2023 release, that is going to be 2013 to 2022 for the HERD expenditures, while the other 3 metrics will be measured from 2014 to 2023.
Super. So let's dive right into the Phase 1 metrics. So this gives kind of a bird's eye view, overarching of where our institution stands against peers there below. We're the orange bar. And in order to navigate through here, we can either use the filters on the filter shelf at the top, or we can actually click on the particular bars, and those bars represent each of those database years. Let's take a look. Yeah, let's take a look for database year 2021, and that will move all of the other metrics in line with the year that you selected. And the reason we might want to do that is because when we're looking at these trends and we say, oh, we went down, for example, for our book count, that's interesting. And then we can kind of dive into that year and look to see how everybody else did during that year as well. So then we can see whether we're in line with trends or not.
And so this is currently showing totals, but some other ways to view this are also per capita and percent of faculty with the work. So if we change this to per capita, it'll give you a slightly different view. So we can see now a bit more measured on how we compare on a per capita view with other institutions.
So for that particular metric, the book metric, it seems like for our purposes, we're in line with all of the peers because everybody seems to be producing less in the way of books over time. But we can see that we're actually doing a little bit better in some cases than our peers. So this is just the sort of bird's eye view way to look at this. We also have this at the broad field level, but when we say broad field, it's not necessarily broad field the way that we think of it at academic analytics. We mapped that to the HERD broad fields, right, Sean?
Mm-hmm.
That's the way. That's the way to put it. Yeah, we mapped it to the HERD broad fields, and there's actually, just for reference, there's a discipline crosswalk there that helps give some insight into how those are mapped.
Mm-hmm. Let's say next, do we want to look at the box plots?
Yeah, let's take a look at the box plots. I like the box plots because sometimes we think we know our peers, and we don't always know our peers, particularly with a particular metric or a particular area of expertise. And so this enables us to really dive in and select specific institutions who are around us to see how they're doing as well, how they're faring with particular metrics. And I like to think, so in this case, we are an AAU institution, the one we're looking at here today, but you don't have to be in the AAU to use this report. This report is really useful, I think, to say to ourselves, are we AAU material? Are we doing what other AAUs are doing? And so, so this is kind of an all opportunity report. It's, as Zach mentioned before, it's an opportunity to say, are we AAU eligible? Are we maintaining our membership? So are we staying within, kind of where we'd like to be as far as membership? And, sort of overall, how are we doing amongst our peers?
So
go ahead.
One thing of note with this, it can be difficult at times to see these different dots that are so kind of scrunched together around you. And so one of the ways that I actually use this that has been beneficial for other clients is you can sometimes look at the outliers here and say, okay, well, so we've got, Yale and Princeton who are kind of these outliers up the top, maybe University of Notre Dame, in terms of per capita for books. And so then what I like to do is I like to come over here and let's see, it was Yale, University of Notre Dame, and who was it? Oh, Princeton. There we go. And so I will remove those. And so by removing those, of course,
From the view. From the view. We
say,
acknowledge that.
we love them and they're still there. But it helps expand this view so you can see how much this has changed. And so you can now more easily hover over who is right around you on some of these metrics. And so one of the things that we were noting with the books is obviously the trend has been down on books for a while. And that's just nationally, we've seen that. But one of the things that's nice about expanding this view is you can see where you have fallen in this quartile right here that you're in. Even within that, while the rest of it is declining, yes, you can actually see that we have moved up here into the center of that quartile. So you can see your institution's movement over time, even within the trend nationally. So what we were saying with seeing that is, while we were decreasing books at, I think, 27%, the AAU was decreasing books at 32%. And so you can see that decrease, although, we're all kind of matching that trend, you can see how your institution is faring compared to specific peer groups. Here we have the AAU selected. You can select public, private, or we can go to R1 non-AAUs if we want to look at that comparison, depending on where your institution falls within those peer groups.
Can you select honorific awards? Because we all love honorific awards. Everyone likes to see that.
And I will clear our institution filters here.
And so everyone is concerned, obviously, with honorific awards. We're going to have, in May, we're going to have another honorific awards report coffee break webinar. We hope you can join us. Here, I think it's a good idea to dive down into the broad field to see where there's opportunities. Because overall, it's really sort of hard to say. At the institution level, yes, we have, this number or per capita of honorific awards, but let's kind of dive into a particular broad field and see if there's areas of opportunity where we could be nominating more faculty for awards. And so we can use this along with all of the other tools we know that you love in our AOD reports and in the portal as well. This is just sort of an at a glance among our peers, who's doing what with honorific awards. So yeah, in the social sciences, we can see that we have had some growth in honorific awards. We could probably take out the outliers here as well. Just so we can see it a little bit more zoomed in for our peers. All right. So again, in social sciences, we're seeing some slight growth here. It doesn't really sort of look like it, but if you really look and think over time, there has been some growth for honorific awards. And we are well within our peers. We're not quite where we want to be, but there's opportunity there.
We also have the same view that we showed for the phase 1 metrics. We have that at the broad field as well. Now, noting the broad field, this is not something that the AAU uses, but as Ange mentioned, this is something that you can use at your institution to say, how can we support our staff, and where can we buttress support for, whether it be books, possibly not books, honorific awards, various research, things like that. This is something that we can look at in terms of where do we focus our efforts at our institution. And so you can see how your institution in that broad field is comparing to other institutions in these various peers. So specifically with average citations, that's something that's going very well for us right now in social sciences. We have seen a 290% increase since 2014 in that 10-year rolling average. And so again, even as there is an uptick for everyone, we are slightly above that in terms of the performance that we have seen over those 10 years.
That's right. Now, HERD expenditures is not is data that's coming directly from NSF HERD. Mm-hmm. And so we lay it out so that you can look at it, but it's not something that we're calculating. It's just for reference here.
Mm-hmm. And if you have questions about what's included in this, again, I reference you to the methodology tab. We have tried our best to answer the questions that we have been asked and we've asked ourselves as going through this report. So hopefully that there are answers there for you. And you'll note that this does cut off at 2022. Again, that's 1 year in arrears.
Let's go to the box plots for broad field. And maybe let's pick, can you do the drop down for the broad field? Let's look at the physical sciences. And then let's select the citations. So there's a story here. Again, we can see some growth. We can see who our peers are. They tend to be the same over time, but I would say this is a good opportunity if you're in the social sciences and you're a dean, or sorry, the physical sciences and you're a dean, investigate who those peers are in the last few database years to see if you want to use those peers in other kinds of analyses. And, on the analyst team, we're used to helping you scope out custom reports. And so if you have custom analyses where you want to see more peer-related comparison, then we can always start in here to kind of say, okay, well, for this particular metric and this particular area, here are your peers on either side of where you are. But I like this story because you can see where we're getting closer here, a little bit closer to being in that first quartile.
Say, do we want to talk about the discipline crosswalk next?
Sure.
So Ange mentioned earlier that we did our best to map the HERD broad fields to the academic analytics broad fields. And so we understand that those aren't going to be a perfect alignment simply because it's two different systems. And so what we have done is we have shown you kind of our thought process here so that as you're going through and looking at where to focus energies and how can you support your faculty, we have listed here. So if you want to see specifically, okay, well, what did we include in life sciences? If you're looking at HERD expenditures for life sciences, you can see the academic analytics disciplines that were included in that and how those compare to the HERD disciplines that are included in that. So you can see these comparative lists to say, okay, well, I know what faculty I have categorized in these fields with academic analytics. How does that compare then to the HERD discipline associated with it and that HERD broad field when you're looking at these broad field tabs that we have here?
Great. Let's go one more time back to the overview page, the phase 1 metrics for the entire institution. And just talk a little bit more about that now that we've introduced it and we've talked about the broad field. Can we think about how this can be useful at a glance when you're running into a meeting? We do have a download page available to you. So if you have data that you need to grab for a meeting, you can just head over to that data download tab and download the data. So as Sean mentioned earlier, the metric type up on the left, that's really important to kind of when you're looking at the data, because totals are just basically counts. But to normalize it, you want to use one of the two other metrics, which is the per capita and the percent of faculty with work. And so play around with this. And if you have questions, let us know. If you have questions and they can't be answered by the methodology, then certainly send us an email and we can help to answer them. I think we have some time. We're at 20 minutes. We can spend some time looking at questions. Zach, how do you feel about punting us some questions?
Absolutely. I figured we could start with a quick one, which is just process. Could you walk everyone through how to get to this report in the academic analytics portal? Because we
Certainly.
started inside the report itself.
That's correct. We did. Certainly. So from the academic analytics portal, let's see, Sean, if you want to pop over to the portal there.
I'm trying to.
Oh, I thought you already had it open. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I had it open. I couldn't get to it. The tricks of sharing your screen when you're not used to Zoom.
All right. So along the top, you may be familiar with benchmarking. Some of these other tabs that you may or may not have, resources tab over there. And then right there is the analysis on demand. So if you click on that, that will open to this page here that we're showing. And we have all of these reports available to you, some of which we've had some other coffee break webinars to talk about how to use these in conjunction with one another or alone to answer questions. And the AAU Phase 1 membership indicators analysis is right at the top. And then you would just hit that run key. This one opens pretty quickly. So if you hit that run tab, it will open for your institution.
I'd say starting with an AA certainly helps it be at the top of the list alphabetically.
Indeed, it does. All right. Thanks for answering that one. The next question we had here was about the per capita metrics. The question was, does per capita have the ability to take labor distribution into consideration?
So the faculty count that we have available for this report is tenured, tenure-track faculty in departments and PhD programs at your institution. And so that, you know, it sort of fits within the other benchmarking part of our product rather than the research insight that's looking at all faculty at your institution. And so while we recognize, and I'm sure the AAU recognizes as well, that there are faculty who are non-research who are very important to your institution, what we're looking at here are research-focused faculty. Does that answer the question, do you think, Zach? Or?
I think so. And I will say it's worth noting that we use the same scoping here as we use for the data that we provide the AAU around awards and books. So you know, this isn't an arbitrary decision on the academic analytics part, nor do we have labor distribution data. So that's the other half of it, is that that data doesn't really exist. But obviously for the different metrics, there's not going to be perfect uniformity in scope. We include our academic analytics faculty count in this report, for example, and that's the count that's used for the awards and the books data we provide to the AAU. But AAU, when they do their normalization of the metrics, they normalize using, for example, the HERD data and the citations, they use different data to normalize. They aren't using academic analytics as faculty account. Now, those numbers tend to be pretty similar. I think we define in the methodology page, I think they're using IPED's faculty counts to normalize the other metrics. And even there, you know, these things are all limited. You know, the citations and the HERD expenditures. HERD expenditures, we're pretty happy that that's something we're able to pretty directly replicate as close as possible to what the AAU is looking at. But the citations data, academic analytics is not the source of the citations data that's used in the AAU's reporting. They use a different database. And so every citations database that's out there is a little bit different in terms of methodology and scope. Academic analytics has a different approach to citations than each of the individual citation and bibliometric companies that exist out there. And so with citations in particular, I would really say that the best thing to use it for is to look at trends and distributions. So looking at sort of how you're trending on the citations and kind of what quintiles of that distribution you're falling in, those are much more informative than raw numbers. If you look at the raw numbers that are in this report and you compare them to the raw numbers on like the AAU scorecard, if you're an AAU member, they will not be the same. We just do not define citations the same way. We aren't capable of measuring them the same way because our data sources are different. Versus the HERD expenditures and the HP awards and the books, those numbers are going to be much more directly comparable. That's something I just kind of wanted to note here as a structural matter. Another thing I wanted to point out was the trend lines that are on here. AAU moved to looking at moving averages and looking at the direction of their trend lines in the last couple of years with the AAU membership process. They used to just look at a 10-year average, and now they also care about kind of how your institution is trending relative to peers. So, if you were in the 75th percentile 10 years ago, and now you're in the 89th percentile, or vice versa, those types of trends, kind of how you're doing relative to the peer group, is actually something that they're now directly considering in their process, versus it used to be they were just looking at the most recent window. We have another question here. As a provider of the data to the AAU, do they use this themselves or do they use different custom reports? I suppose I can answer that one since I'm the one who actually provides the data to the AAU. We just provide them an extract of the books and the highly prestigious awards data that's in here. So they don't actually use this report itself. We just send them an Excel file of the total and per capita and faculty count data for books and highly prestigious awards for all combined department and PhD program faculty each fall when we're launching the academic analytics database. We do provide them sometimes other custom reporting, but that's the reporting that we provide them that's actually used in the AAU membership metric. Sometimes they want to slice and dice the data in different ways. We provide them with a breakout of it by awards, because one thing that the AAU does is they subtract out the National Academies counts that we calculate, and then they calculate them themselves and add them back in. We end up in essentially the same place. Sometimes there's small differences because someone might be affiliated with an institution but might not be a department or PhD program research active or tenure track faculty member, and so there can be a handful of differences in the ones and twos types of ranges there. But that is one thing that the AAU does do manually, is they actually go in and they look at the individual National Academy websites and they add those numbers back into the counts that we provide them. So that would be the one caveat there about the awards data. Those are going to be extremely minor differences, but occasionally you might have like an emeritus faculty member or something like that who the institution would still get credit for that in the AAU's analysis, but those people have dropped off in the academic analytics database because they're not considered to be research active anymore. Right. I don't see any more questions in the chat at the moment. So I think I'm going to give everyone just another moment here in case anyone has any last moment burning questions here before we wrap up. Because we are just about 2 minutes before we're supposed to wrap up. So we timed this perfectly, I would say. We had the exact right number. Oh, we had one more question here, which is, will the data we send to the AAU include new R1s? Yes. So we always provide them with everyone in the R1 population, as well as a couple of other institutions that they're specifically interested in. And they generally have us use whatever the newest classifications are. So this fall, we'll probably use the newest classifications. I haven't spoken with them directly about how they want to handle it, but that would be my assumption. And we, generally speaking, will also end up providing them some additional institutions. They sometimes are like, oh, we want some of the institutions who are kind of on the bubble just so that we can see them as part of our analyses. Oh, we had one more question here, which is if you don't see this report in the list, is there an access issue? So yes, that may, it's most likely specific to your institution. So if you were to reach out to the person on campus who coordinates academic analytics for your campus, what we call the data liaison, they can give you more information about your access. At some institutions, this report hasn't been rolled out to the entire campus, and so you may just need to request access to it. but that's a decision that's made on campus by your data liaison. It's generally someone in institutional research or the provost's office or the VPR's office, depending on how the academic analytics products are implemented on your campus. But if you were to reach out to that individual, they could either provide you with access or let you know why access hasn't been provided. Oh, and then there's one more question that just came in. Are medical schools included? So the basic sciences folks in medical schools will be included in this data, but clinical faculty and the sort of the academic medical center writ large, what would be in medical insight in the database, are not currently included. The AAU, we've talked to them about this, and right now that is not something that they're using in their calculations for the AAU. They're not bringing in those medical faculty. And so we're not including those on our side either, but it's certainly something that we'd be interested in doing in the future. But we're just going to mirror the AAU's methodology there, since the purpose of this report, unlike a lot of other reports that we produce, I would say this report is because we're so directly trying to provide you with as accurate as possible of a mirror of the AAU's membership metrics. We really are following their lead on everything that we're doing here.
All right.
All right.
Well, we
I
are at
think
the bottom
that
of
was
the
our
hour
last
here.
question. We
Great.
are indeed. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here just to pull back up our little closing slide here. I wanted to make you all aware of an upcoming coffee break webinar that we have. The next topic is on May 9th, and it is Visualizing Success, Understanding Faculty Movement. I think you'll see another familiar face from our group here today. Coming up here in a couple of weeks. And then we also have a couple of in-person events coming up. This week we have the Audi annual meeting in Irvine, and then we also have in late May the AIR Forum, which will be back in Orlando this year. So if you'll be at either of those two events, we will have a team on the ground, and we would look forward to meeting up with you there. You can drop by our booth or meet up with folks, book a one-on-one, and we hope you join our next coffee break webinar series here on May 9th. All right. Thank you all for attending. We really appreciate your attendance today. If you have any questions, you can either reach out to your on-campus data liaison and they can put you in touch with, or if you have direct contact information for the account manager for your campus, you can always reach out to them and they can pass along any questions. Either they can answer them directly, or if you have technical questions that you didn't think of today, they can pass them along to us and we can get you back a direct answer. All right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks. Bye, y'all.